This is the story of our 2 groundings and what we have learned from both these groundings. We woke up in the morning after a good night's sleep and found ourselves completely on the other side of the cove. We had no idea we had moved. This was our first lesson. What we learned is to download an anchor alarm from the App Store for our iPhone. We turn this on. It also works on the iPad, and we usually turn it on the iPad once we drop the anchor. And you can set a round circle for as wide as you want the circle to be, and you can keep an eye on it through the evening, and that will make you feel secure that your anchor is holding, and you can see the pattern and how far you're going away from the anchor, and then determine how many feet you want it to have before the alarm goes off. We have this on our iPad because our iPad is GPS enabled, so we do not have to have internet and rely on internet at all.
This is one of those times when we should have paid a little closer to the weather. When we anchored in the evening, it was dead calm. We were swimming. It was beautiful late in the fall. The cove that we were in had a lot of weeds that had grown in over the year, and I thought the anchor was set, but apparently it was set in the roots of the weeds. And then when the winds kicked up to 30 knots during the night, we slowly dragged across. Didn't have an anchor alarm set, but I will say Sea-Tow was great. They came out to us within an hour they were there. We weren't in a hurry to leave anyways. They had a nice bridle that they hooked to our front cleats, and would have towed us all the way back to the marina if something would have been damaged. But fortunately, when we drifted back, we were just in very thick weeds against a gradual muddy shoreline, and no damage was done to the rudders or props or anything. I didn't start the engines and try to drive us out of there, so no weeds got tangled around the shafts or propellers, and nothing got sucked up into the strainers on the engine. I waited to start the engines until Sea-Tow had us out in a very deep, clear part of the cove. Sea-Tow came from our marina and said that they were the only boat out there with 3-foot waves out on the river, which is really unusual.
Our second time we grounded was on our way up to Michigan. We were going through Decatur, Georgia, and I think we probably both have different stories on how this happened. But in the end, the grounding was my fault. I was the one at the wheel, and so I take responsibility. But let me explain. At mile marker 300, Ed had to make a decision of going one of 2 ways. And he chose, and I'm not even sure which way he chose, but he chose one of those ways. And then he gave the wheel to me. I was driving along, doing fine, and there was a fishing boat in the middle of the channel. So as I came towards him, I decided to go around him on the right-hand side. And as I did that, I must have got into some shallow area. And I also was looking ahead and saw markers and was kind of confused at where we were at because a ton of markers were coming together, because I think the 3 areas, just all those markers were all over the place. And so I was getting the binoculars out and trying to figure out the markers plus watching this fishing boat as I'm trying to pass it. And there we are, stuck in some shallow water.
Our second grounding was a lot scarier than the first one. It happened as we left on our trip from Michigan, just a little ways down the Tennessee River as we passed Decatur. There's a really large Purina cat chow plant there. You can actually smell it. But we went by that, and we decided to take a route a little more towards the center of the river where the channel divides to stay away from the barge activity in the area. We went under a railroad bridge that we had to wait for. And it was right after that railroad bridge. Maureen had made lunch. She had her lunch. We switched captains, And she took the wheel, and I was sitting in the back of the flybridge at the table enjoying lunch. And she was trying to avoid a fisherman in a fairly narrow channel. And we ran into a little gravel bar. Fortunately, as soon as she started to get out of the channel and saw it getting shallow, she called out to me. We got there, put the engines off, and when we tried to back out, I could hear gravel in the engines or in the propellers. So we stopped, called for help, got pulled out. Another escape with no damage. So what we learned from this experience, and it hasn't happened again since, is that when you switch captains, you have to go through detail as to what route you're following and where the channel is, especially when it's splitting and there's two different ways to go. And make sure that the person taking over understands where the markers are, what's the next one you're going to, because when there's two channels, they split and you can get confused as to where you're at. So we really take our time doing that now, and it's caused many more hours and miles, probably a couple thousand more miles, and we've never had that experience again. Maureen and I hope you will learn from our two grounding experiences. We'd love to hear about any grounding experiences or near grounding experiences you may have had. Please put them in the comments in the video. Thanks for watching. Have a great cruising season.